proposed budget?
No, the funding level for community ed is 5,000. I think it was 5,500 this year. Children's Home Society 7,500, and it's 10,000 currently. And West Columbia Gorge 4,000, currently 25. So those the same proposal as
Okay.
as was presented last. Thanks for asking.
Thanks. That's all I have.
I'll turn it over to Jen.
So here's the bottom line budget, 32.2 million, broken out between the general street and fire funds at 11.1 million, 10.6 for the utility funds, roughly 8.5 million in projects and grants, basically E Street and the EECBG grant.
That's correct.
And then we have about 2 million in the other funds collectively. And we're not gonna go line item by line item again, that's just kind of a high level review, and we're now gonna move to the general street and fire funds. And I'm sure you can read the minutia of information here. But basically, the bottom line is revenues, we're projecting at about a 13% decrease from the 2010 amended budget. Again, it has to do with the decrease in the AV for property taxes and some of the other line items there. So we have, again, budgeted conservatively to make sure that we're being realistic and not overestimating these numbers. Expenditures, we have budgeted at 11.1 million. And we'll get into some of the details, high-level details of what that entails here momentarily. Just wanted to give you the high level by department. There's various increases, decreases. But overall, the budget that we're presenting for the mayor is about a 7% decrease from the amended budget for 2010. So what does that do to the projected deficit? As you can see, 2013 looks a lot better than it did back in July. I think Paul's slides back in July had 2013 at about $1.6 million deficit. So this is due to all of the belt tightening this year and the budget for 2011 as well. So we've really worked hard as department heads and city staff in general to really get this number down for the future.
If you wouldn't mind, I've got a question for you about that.
Sure.
You say less ER&R fund. So is that basically just saying that we're just accounting for it?
Correct. So we're transferring, the way governmental accounting works, when you transfer it from one fund to another, it comes up as an expense. So that's why it's showing a deficit of 784, but really that 600,000 is just being moved over to the ER&R fund from the general reserves. And so the actual deficit that's hitting expenditure-wise, true expenditure-wise, would be the roughly 185,000.
So the operating deficit, current year revenues, current year expenses, notwithstanding leveraging the reserves for the ER&R into a separate fund is $185,000. That's down from
It was
almost $1 million, I guess, that we had
Mhm.
earlier in the year.
But that was $1 million prior to us using the ER&R, right?
correct.
So it really would have been the 784 is really the difference between that and that. Because if we had the ER&R prior to the $1 million number, it would have still been $600,000 less, right?
Well, we didn't have the ER&R, if I'm understanding correctly, we didn't have that 600,000 built in as an expense
Exactly.
before. So that was truly almost $1 million worth of expenses, operating expenses.
Right. If we had included the ER&R, it would have been 1 point something. But we weren't anticipating or budgeting for that. And it was even bigger earlier at the very beginning of the year before the mayor instituted some of the initial cost savings measures.
John?
$600,000 amount,
Mhm.
where did we get that amount? Why do we need to put that much? Why not 400,000? Why not 700,000? Why 600,000?
It seemed that was a prudent initial investment, given the first-year expenses that we're anticipating of a little over 400,000 for some long-deferred replacements of rolling stock, particularly in the general street and fire fund. That left 100 or plus as an ongoing reserve base for that, and then adding about 50 in per year to seed it. There was no magic, other than that. It should be more than the initial investment, but it shouldn't be the entire reserve.
So the 600,000 is money from the reserves that's being placed in this fund.
Correct.
So
That's right.
And the 184,000 is money from reserves that's going to shore up the general budget.
Right, that would
Correct.
be additional use of reserves to balance current year revenues and expenditures for operating.
Dave?
EWC has a standard for percentage of reserves that should be maintained to handle cash flow.
Mhm.
Do you know what that is in dollar terms for us?
It's
16%, about 1.6.
16%.
About 2 months.
2 months.
2 months budget expenditures.
So that.
I think it's roughly 1.6 or 1.8 million.
Conservative estimate, 1.7 million is what our reserve balance should be.
So if you look at the line that says ending cash reserve, and you start in 2011, it's got 3 million, and then it declines a little bit, assuming that operating deficits would be maintained in 12 and 13. That $3 million has two pieces to it. One would be your policy as council that we maintain that 16%, which is consistent with the recommendations of the organizations. That's the $1.567 million. The remaining, about 1.5 or 1.4, could be called uncommitted savings. It's additional monies that are in the reserve that are uncommitted to anything specific beyond the 16% cash flow reserve. And backed out of that number also is the 600, as you see, and the supplanting money. The supplanting dollars were backed out already. You already did this in the 2010 supplemental budget. So the reserve number that you had earlier in the year was about $1.2 million higher, or actually almost $1.4 million higher than that $3 million.
So you've got the cash flow reserve of 1.6 million.
It's 1.75.
Okay,
Is
so that
the
leaves you
16%.
1.25 million as uncommitted reserves for emergencies that come up. It's pretty thin. It's gonna get worse. It's gonna be $600,000 less than that, or almost half of that reserve by 2013.
If that trend in deficit spending is to continue, this is the projection. I think the message of this slide is we have an ongoing problem, structural deficit, if you would, that is going to require attention. I don't believe